So I'm Ann Garcia. I'm a partner at Independent Progressive Advisors in Portland, Oregon, and I am the author of How to Pay for College, a complete financial plan for funding your child's education. I'm a certified financial planner and a fee-only fiduciary advisor. Um, I um, I chose to become a financial advisor. I'm actually a career changer. I had a long career in tech. A big part of that was working at Intuit. And at Intuit, we always joke that every January 15th, all your friends call and ask for a free copy of TurboTax. And every April 15th, they all call and ask what to do with their tax refund. And I found that I really enjoyed having those conversations about thinking strategically about money and what to, how to use it to make your life better. And so after my kids were born, I did not want to work in tech anymore and made a career change to become a financial advisor. And early in my career as an advisor, I noticed that I was talking with a lot of two groups of people. One was parents who were trying to figure out how they were going to finance their kids' education. And the other was young adults who had taken on so much student loan debt that they were really struggling to put together the basic building blocks of their adult financial lives, whether that's having an emergency fund, whether it's saving for retirement, buying a home, in many cases, even getting married and having children. Mm-hmm. And I kind of felt like if I could help that first group of people, the parents who are trying to figure this out, then I might see less of that second group of people. And I'm a parent myself. So there was also an element of self-interest in all of this, where I had two children who at the time were elementary, middle school students. This year will graduate from college. So I knew that this was something I needed to figure out for my own family as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and so it's funny you say that because I'm also a career changer. Like my goal is to become a CFP, and so I try to find the best available experts on different kinds of fields. And I feel like you were the person I feel like I felt most was the most comprehensive when it came to college planning. And I also have a 3-year-old daughter, and one thing I've noticed about the finance industry, it's brittled by conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere you go, whether it be if you go to you're trying to get a house, you purchase a house, you have the representative trying to sell you maybe a house that's over your budget for the sake of compensation. If you go to insurance, you have people trying to sell you whole insurance when you probably don't need it. And so trying to find a CFP that kind of just upfront puts the conflict of interest is really, really, I mean, at least gave me peace of mind when I was trying to understand college planning
Yeah.
and saying like, okay, here's this 520 account. How exactly we're going to go about it. And that's why I really, really liked your book. And so maybe
Oh,
we could
thanks.
start with what okay, start from the beginning. Like my wife just got pregnant. How should I start thinking about college planning?
It's funny because when we often find when couples are newly expecting a baby, that is their first thought is, how do I start saving for college? It's not, I probably need life insurance or or how much is childcare going to cost, but I need to set up a 529. So I think there's two important college planning tasks for young families to have. And this might be, the situation where we're pregnant, what do we need to do? Or it might be someone with a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old who hasn't really done anything, or really at any age, who hasn't done anything um, to start in this process. So two important things, because excuse me, to me, financial planning for college is equal parts financial planning and parenting. So I, as an advisor, can come up with a great college plan for a family that checks all their boxes, meets their budget, has application strategies, helps them find colleges. But if the parents aren't doing the parenting work of talking with their kid about why they want them to go to college, of what their budget for college is, of how they're going to find colleges that meet their budget, of why they shouldn't take on extra student loans, If the parents aren't doing that piece of it, then all of the planning work is for naught, because it's very easy for the cart to get in front of the horse, especially when you're talking about 16 and 17-year-olds. So going back to the beginning, for a young family, really, really important first step is for the parents, assuming there's two parents in the picture, to get on the same page about what their plans and preferences are for college. You may have two parents where one is like, college is the most important thing that we're going to do for the next 22 years. And you might have one who says, I put myself through college. Why should I not expect the same of my child? So really important for parents to have those conversations between themselves, make sure they're on the same page at a level that's appropriate. Not, we're an Ivy League family, but we want to provide a 4-year education for our child, or we want to help our child as much as we can. We don't think it's 4 years of away at college. Have those conversations between the two of you. Second most important thing is set up a 529 account. 529s are, just taking a step back, tax advantaged, dedicated college savings account. Many things are great about 529s, tax-free growth and distributions. For example, many states offer tax benefits for contributions. But one of the really great things for young families, especially parents who are really cash strapped, as is often the case in those early years of parenting, is almost all 529s have a feature called a gifting page. And a gifting page lets other people put their money in your 529. And so if you are constantly saying, please no more toys, or we've got more than enough clothes, or whatever the case may be, give people an alternative. And a 529 is a great alternative to give to people. And I've seen plenty of families who've collected thousands of dollars into their children's 529s in the form of gifts from other people.
That's funny you said that, because that was going to be my second question. My question was going to be like, okay, I feel like the reason why some parents or even the general population is like college planning, nah, that's way over. Like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I can't think about that. And so like I noticed that when I asked people, like my sister's at Cal Poly, so I had her ask all her friends questions about college planning, and she had a lot of good questions. So I'll be asking those later. But when it came to the younger, newly parent, it was just out of the question. It's like I don't even want to think about that. That's overwhelming. But the fact that you could just open the 529 account and then just have your grandparents you know, every birthday or just like a small gift instead of toys, you get that. It adds up over the 18-year span.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know so many, grandparents, aunts and uncles, people like that who I work with who are like, I would love to help, my adult children or my nieces and nephews, but I want it to be something that I know is dedicated for their education. I don't want to just write them a check and have them go to Disneyland. So having that 529 gives all those other people in your life the opportunity to help you out in a way that's really beneficial to your child, and that will add up to lots and lots of, potentially lots and lots of additional money by the time, by the time they reach college.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I guess I could see somebody asking the question, okay, what if they don't want to go to college, right? Like that's going to be probably one of the questions that comes up. What would you do then? Like, would a 529 account still be the best alternative?
So I still think that 529s are great alternatives. Any student who's going to do anything after high school, chances are they can use their 529 for it. It's not just limited to 4-year colleges. So first and foremost, any 529 can be used at any educational institution where you can take out a federal student loan. So that includes community colleges, it includes 4-year colleges, public colleges, private colleges, even many international colleges have that. There are also gap year programs where you can use this money, apprenticeships, traineeships. So lots and lots of places where you can use 529 money. It is not just for 4-year for four-year colleges. But several things if you have money in a 529 and a student who isn't going to college. One is that the 529 has a named beneficiary and you can change that at any point. So if you have two children, each has a 529, one doesn't go to college, you can make the other one the beneficiary of the first one's 529 account, and then you use it for that student instead. You can also, once the account has been open for 15 years, you can use funds in it to make Roth IRA contributions. So up to $35,000 in the account can be used for a Roth IRA. So if you're a parent who set up a 529 with the intention that that was going to help your child get a start in life, and they choose not to go to college, the other way it can help them get a start in life is by converting it to retirement savings. So funds that will be available to help them out when you're no longer around to do so.
That's kind of wild how versatile the 529 account is.
Mm-hmm.
How much you
And I
can.
mean, worst case scenario, you don't want that. You don't want, you don't want college. You don't want Roth IRA. You can just take the money out and pay the taxes and penalties. And the good thing is that those taxes are assessed to the person who takes the money out. So I had a client a few years ago whose son opted not to go to college and he had 529 money. He was getting a job and he needed a car. So he just took the money out of his 529. Like I said, you pay taxes and penalties on the growth in the account.
Mm-hmm.
But as a young adult who was just getting started, his tax rate was really low. And he was thrilled to have money to buy a car so that he could start his job.
Okay, wait. So you said the tax depends on who's taking it out, right?
Correct. So
Okay.
when you take the money out of the 529, your choices are to have it go to the college directly,
Mm-hmm.
to the beneficiary of the account, or to the owner of the account.
Mm-hmm.
So those are more or less moot from a tax perspective if the student is going to college. But if they're not, or if it's a non-qualified distribution, so either they're not going to college or you're taking out more than college cost you in a given year, then it's taxed to the person who received it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then I guess that pretty much covers. I would say like from year what, like 1 to like 10, because I mean like what.
So those, yeah. So I think those are, those are good steps for the early years. I would say too, is let's say, you started this 529 when your kid was a baby and you were paying for childcare and you were working less and you have people in your household who outgrow everything they own every 3 weeks. So you're replacing it constantly. So make sure that as you go through life, that you might have set it up and hardly contributed anything. Maybe you put in the minimum initial contribution and never touched it since. Just make sure that periodically you're going back, looking at your financial situation and saying, how could I adjust this? Like maybe your child starts kindergarten and so you're not paying as much for childcare anymore. That might free up $20 a month, because I'm not going to say you're not paying for childcare anymore. You're just not paying for quite so much childcare. Maybe that gives you an extra $20 a month that you can set up an automatic monthly contribution into your 529. I think as you go through life, it's a great idea every year. Maybe it's on your child's birthday. Look at what a great year you've had with them, look at the future that you want to create for them, and look at your budget and say, maybe I can increase my monthly contribution by 5, 10, 20, some amount of dollars, so that as time goes on, you're building up your savings rate and building up the savings that you have available to your child. A lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't save. You'll get more financial aid if you don't save. And there's a tiny kernel of truth in that your college savings, 5.64% of the balance is considered money that's available to pay for college when calculating how much you can pay. But the more savings you have, the more choices your student is going to have. And I think as parents, what we really want for our kids is good choices. And so by saving, you create more choices.
Exactly. And I guess, and I feel like what sometimes like a young parent, right? I have a 3-year-old. We felt to kind of like foresee is that when that child is getting close to college, we're going to feel more obligation, right? this kind of like
Mhm.
intense obligation to provide the best. And so if you could start that early and kind of like, use those 18 years of growth, you can kind of offset that panic
Yeah.
when it's 2 year or you're 4 weeks into deciding whether you should go this school, that school.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's time value of money, right? The earlier you start, the more work your money does. The later you start, the more work you do. So if you start out by contributing, $20 a month to your child's 529, and then you increase it by $5 a month every year on their birthday, you'll have, probably $20,000 more when they get out of high school than if you did nothing.
No, exactly. Okay. And then so we could transition to like maybe high school, right? You have a freshman who's
Yeah.
kind of thinking about college. Like, what would be the next appropriate steps?
Yeah. Well, let's back it up a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about when you're in middle school, because here's something you can do when you're in middle school that I think is a really helpful exercise for parents. First and foremost, every college is required to have on its website a tool called a net price calculator. And a net price calculator tells you basically what students whose family financial situation is similar to yours pay to attend that college currently. I think that's a great exercise for parents is to do the net price calculator at your alma mater, do the net price calculator at colleges that you might hear, your kids' friends, older siblings go to. See what college actually costs. And then look at what your in-state colleges cost too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another thing that's a great exercise to do at that age is look at your college budget. So, what you're doing for savings, what you could pay out of pocket, and see what does that look like for my kid? When I fast forward that to age 18, what has my savings grown to? And when I divide that by 4, what does that come up to with how much I can contribute each year towards college costs? And when you do that, that'll give you a good sense of, are we on track for the kinds of college opportunities that we want to make available to our kid? If not, there's two choices. One is there more that I can do? Can we save more? Can we contribute more out of pocket? Are we going to need to be finding scholarships? And so on and so forth. And the other is maybe we just need to manage our expectations, and maybe we need to just recognize that we're probably on a 2-year college path, or getting lots of college credits in high school so that we're not on the 4-year path. So those are all good things to do when you have enough years ahead of you that you can adjust your plans. Now, when your student gets to high school, that's really rubber hits the road time. I think by then most of us have a pretty good sense of who our kids are as students, and so what sort of academic and collegiate pathways they're likely to be on. One thing that I highly recommend that people do in freshman year of high school is look at your state college's scholarship programs. So, how are scholarships awarded? Every public college has some scholarships that it offers, more likely merit scholarships than need-based scholarships. So look at the criteria for those merit scholarships so that you can make sure that your student is on the pathway there. And when I say look at the criteria, I don't mean just it's this GPA and this test score. Many do still require test scores for merit scholarships, but what specific GPA do they use? Are they using weighted GPA or unweighted GPA? So for those of you who haven't had the good fortune of parsing through high school classes, students who take AP or IB or other advanced classes, those often are on a 5-point GPA scale versus the 4-point GPA of standard classes. That's really great for students with where schools count weighted GPA, but what we found is that a lot of the public schools use unweighted GPAs. And so if that scholarship path is important to you, You want to make sure that you're managing your students' course load so that as they're choosing those advanced classes, they're choosing ones where they're going to put in the time and effort to get the same GPA that they would in an unweighted class.
Yes.
Likewise, what kind of college credits do the schools that you're interested in offer for advanced classes that students take during high school? Some will give you credit towards your major. Some will give you gen ed credits. Some will give you placement, but no credits. My daughter did a full IB diploma in high school and still had to take placement tests at her college for all of the classes, where at another college she would have gotten tons and tons of credit toward her major.
Yeah, no, my sister went to community college for 2 years, and my brother also went to community college for 2 years. And yeah, that's, I mean, how much you could, how many different things you could do in high school is actually pretty incredible when it comes to like to college planning or
Mhm.
college.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
there's,
most states have options, for example, where high school students can do their junior and senior year of high school at the local community college and get college credits for those classes. And so they'll graduate from high school halfway to their college degree.
yeah, no, it's, mm, let's see. And then how would you say that would be the same kind of planning for junior year, or what would the difference between junior year and sophomore year would be for you?
Well, I think it's really important by the time you're getting to junior year that as parents, you've had conversations with your student about what their college budget looks like and what your expectations for them in the college application process are. Too many families either expect, oh, we did the FAFSA's EFC calculator and our EFC is $20,000. So that's what it's going to cost us to go to college. That is not necessarily the case. If you so it's really important for parents to be talking with their kids about what their college budget looks like, what their college options are, what kind of support the family's willing to give them. And I encourage parents to do this from a goals-based perspective as opposed to a constraints-based perspective. And what I mean by that is a constraints-based perspective is you have to go to community college and then you can transfer to our in-state college, or you can only consider in-state colleges. A better way to phrase that gives your kid, because your kid needs to have a high level of agency in this process too. They're the ones who's actually going to go to college, is we've been saving really hard for your education. And we know that we can afford for you to graduate from, or for you to go to, say, Oregon State, because I'm in Oregon,
Mhm.
for 4 years and graduate debt free. And that is really important to us, that you are able to graduate from college debt free. There are probably other colleges that you can find that will cost about the same, and we will absolutely support you in finding them, because our goal is for you to have a college degree and no student loan debt. Or we can afford 2 years of you going away to college, and we can strategize about the different ways to make that work, because there are loads and loads of options out there
Mm-hmm.
for students at every price point. And I say that my son has a friend who just got her college degree for free. She paid $0 for it. She did free community college for her first 2 years out of high school. And then she worked for Starbucks, and Starbucks has a partnership with Arizona State where
Oh yeah, I've
where
heard of that.
Starbucks employees
Yeah.
can go to Arizona State for free. And so she, you know, there was a college pathway that cost $0. And there are college pathways that cost $90,000. So
I mean, it's important you
it's
say that.
important for parents to be guiding their students towards the choices that fit the family's budget.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. It's good to point out that as a parent, you don't have to be obligated to pay the 100% of the college price. So, for
Right.
example, you can truly only pay 20%, right? And so that
Mhm.
might be your consideration. Maybe if you overdo it, you might not be able to save for retirement. And so And that's, I guess, that would be the next question. Is like, what would you say is the balance between retirement funding and, you know, college funding for these
in college.
parents?
Yeah, and and I hope that people toss out the old saying of save for retirement, not for college, because there's loans for college and not for retirement. That's how we got over $1 trillion in outstanding student loan debt. If college is a priority for your family, then you need to save for it. In addition to saving for retirement. And yes, retirement comes first, but college comes second. So my rule of thumb is this: if you are not saving for retirement, then you are not saving for college either. So start saving for retirement first. Um, once you, assuming that you are saving for retirement, but maybe you're not maxing out, so not the 22,500 that you can put in a 401k every year. If that's you, then no more than 10% of what's going into retirement should go into college. So if you're saving $10,000 a year for retirement, your annual college savings budget is $10,000. And if you want to save more for college, save more for retirement. Move those numbers up together. If you are maxing out retirement, then start looking at, what are the college options that we want to provide for our students. So another rule of thumb is if you want to have the full cost of in-state full price college covered when your student is 18 years old, you need to save $375 a month every month from the day they're from birth through high school graduation. Now, the vast majority of people do not pay the full cost of college out of savings, and the vast majority of people's financial situations change over the course of their lifetime. So do not beat yourself up that you didn't start saving $375 a month when your kids were born. I fall into that camp, and both of my kids will graduate debt-free from college this year. And that's with us. I don't know that we ever saved $375 a month for college. So, but once you're maxing out retirement, maybe you target the tax deductible amount in your state, or maybe you target that $375 dollars a month. Or maybe you just say, my goal is that we have this many dollars saved by the time our student graduates high school, because we're going to pick up part of the cost out of pocket. They're going to cover some of their costs. We're okay with them taking out the direct student loan. We're eligible for the American Opportunity Tax Credit. Grandma and grandpa might help, whatever those things are. Or we are not, this is just how much we can allocate towards college. Any of those are fine, but you can kind of work backwards from those numbers. But if you're not maxing out retirement, then you need to build up retirement and college at the same time. So maybe if you're doing $10,000 a year this year for retirement and $1,000 for college, maybe next year you can do $11,000 for retirement, and then you're doing $1,100 for college.
And I think this goes back to like what you said in the beginning, where if you just open an account, right, and just do, okay, I'm gonna just focus on our retirement account, right? I'm gonna make sure all my retirement accounts are all fully maxed out, and I don't know exactly how much I'm gonna provide for my daughter, right? I'm just gonna do the birthday thing. I could just be like, okay, I'm just gonna use whatever birthday money she has for college funding, and so it just because you don't necessarily have enough money for a plan to max out your retirement account doesn't mean you should open the account in the first place. If you had the account open in the first place, it's still going to be building off the money.
Yep. Yep. And, and the really nice thing with 529s is the minimum amounts you can put in are really low. I mean, they vary by plan, but typically, the minimum ongoing contribution is like $10 or $20, and you could do that monthly, you could do it quarterly, you could do it annually. The minimum amount to set up the account, if it's a state-based plan, is typically, maybe $50, maybe $100. So the thresholds are quite low to get started saving, and anything you can do to save is going to give your child more choices.
And yeah, I think that out of most things I'm hearing, that's probably the most important thing I'm hearing over and over, is that you're providing the ability to choose. Basically, you're expanding the probability for them to choose a college they want.
Yeah. And I'll get, my daughter's a great example. We were never committed to paying zillions of dollars for college. On the other hand, she's very much a fit for a private college and not a fit for our particular in-state colleges, which are wonderful, but not necessarily wonderful for everyone. And we wanted her to have the opportunity to go to a private school. Because we saved, that was a possibility. Had we not saved, it would have been completely out of the question.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I could start asking the questions about in college planning. So you're, for example, like I have a person I know has a good amount saved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I've read is that retirement accounts are actually shielded from 529.
From financial aid?
Yes, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about how financial aid works. And I'm going to start by saying there are 3 types of scholarships. There is need-based financial aid, there are merit scholarships that are offered by colleges, and then there are outside scholarships, and those are scholarships that are offered by entities other than the college. So let's start with need-based financial aid. There are 2 financial aid forms that families typically have to fill out. The one that everyone fills out is the FAFSA, and that is the free application for federal student aid. All colleges use that because that gets you access to federal student loans, to work study, and to Pell Grants and a few other programs. Many private colleges use an additional financial aid form called the CSS Profile. Each of those collects information about parent income, parent assets, and student assets. All of those numbers get added up and they calculate what's called your expected family contribution, which from the FAFSA at least is changing to the student aid index this year. And so the FAFSA looks at the parent's income, parents' non-retirement assets, so 529s, taxable investment accounts, checking and savings accounts, second homes, investment properties, all that kind of stuff. It does not look at retirement savings, and it doesn't look at insurance policies. It also doesn't look at 529s that people other than the parents own. So for example, if grandparents have set up a 529, that doesn't show up anywhere on the FAFSA. Then it looks at the student's income. Usually that's a non-factor because unless students have at least $7,000 of income, it doesn't count at all. Mm-hmm. And then the student's assets. So any money that the student has in their bank account, likewise, if they have it in a Roth IRA, it does not count as their asset. So it adds up all those numbers and calculates this number called the expected family contribution or student aid index. Important thing, because people always talk about, oh my gosh, I don't want my assets to be on the FAFSA. The biggest piece of the FAFSA is the parent's income. So for most parents, every incremental dollar of income adds 47 cents to your ability to pay for college. So every $1,000 of income increases your ability to pay by $470, or your expected family contribution. Assets belonging to the parents are assessed at 5.64% of their value. So every $1,000 of assets increases your expected family contribution or your ability to pay by $56. So very insignificant compared with the $944 of additional choice that your student has. Mm-hmm. The CSS profile works similarly. It looks at a slightly more expanded definition of things. So it will ask about your home equity. It will ask about insurance policies. It will ask about 529s for which your student is the beneficiary, that are not owned by the parents, among other things. And then schools can add their own questions in there. So I know when we filled it out, one school wanted to know what cars we drove, and one school wanted to know, how much money we had contributed to our students' summer job, and things like that. But anyway, both of those forms calculate a number called your expected family contribution. If your expected family contribution is lower than the cost of attendance, then you are eligible for need-based financial aid. However, colleges are not obligated to meet your financial need. Some do. Some will meet a student's full demonstrated need. Some will meet a student's full demonstrated need, but part of meeting that need is a student loan and work study. And some of them will meet 100% of need through grants alone. So lots of different places you can go with that. Your best tool for figuring out what colleges are going to offer is doing the net price calculator for the college.
And they have that on their own websites, right?
Yes,
I think
every
it's a
college is
requirement.
required
Yeah,
to
it's
have
a
one on their website. They have varying levels of accuracy. We found when my daughter was applying to colleges that every college that she was accepted to, her financial aid package was within $2,000 of what the net price calculator had said it would be.
Oh, so that's pretty close.
So
Okay.
in our case, they were all very accurate. But that's not always the case. If you are someone who has a highly variable income, let's say, you have a commission-based income that varies a lot from year to year, your package could look really, really different. But our experience was, they all look very close to what the net price calculators had said they would. Now, the next big pool of scholarships is that institutional merit scholarships. Many colleges offer those as well, not all. The top schools, we'll call them the Ivy Plus schools, do not offer merit aid. Being eligible for merit aid is kind of table stakes in getting into those colleges. So if merit aid is an important consideration for you, you want to look for colleges that offer it. And that's families whose incomes are too high to qualify for need-based financial aid, but who still don't have $85,000 or $90,000 a year to shell out for college. But again, you'll have a large pool of colleges available to you that do offer merit aid, including most public schools. Now, when I say most public schools, many public schools offer merit awards to out-of-state students, but not all. All public schools offer some form of merit scholarships to their in-state students. The thing that's nice about merit scholarships is they typically just renew automatically, whereas need-based scholarships, every year you're going to fill out the FAFSA again, and something could happen over the course of 4 years that changes your expected family contribution and would then change your financial aid package.
And then you said the last one would be like what, athletic scholarships?
The outside scholarships.
Okay,
So
outside
athletic
scholarships.
scholarships are a form of institutional merit
Okay,
scholarship. Those
yeah.
come from the college themselves. And let's talk about those for a second, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about
100%.
athletic scholarships. There are a very short list of sports where all students get a full ride scholarship. Those are football and basketball for men, basketball, tennis, volleyball, and gymnastics for women. So if you play one of those sports and you play at the D1 level, you will get a full scholarship. All the other sports are what's called equivalency sports. So that first group, head count, every single person on the roster gets a scholarship, and the number of roster spots is determined by the NCAA. Every other sport is what's called an equivalency sport. And in those sports, the coach gets the equivalent of a certain number of scholarships that they can distribute among their athletes as they wish. So soccer, for example, has about 9 scholarships for a team. Now, a soccer team may have 25 or 30 students on the roster. So let's assume at the D1 level, maybe 3 of those students, 3 or 5 are getting full rides. That means there's somewhere between, 4 and 6 scholarships that get divided among the other 20 something players on the team. And it always bothers me that I think club sports coaches are not good at explaining that to their players. So I have a friend whose daughter was the goalkeeper at a D1 soccer program and left after her freshman year because she had taken out $40,000 in student loans to be a student athlete.
Yes.
And because of her athletic commission obligations, couldn't hold a job.
I play soccer, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I've worked at certain clubs where they give this false impression about certain athletes getting scholarships. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, the number is so low, and especially when it comes to a full scholarship. Yeah,
Yeah.
you may get a partial scholarship, but what is partial scholarship when you're at a, I don't know, $50,000 school?
Yeah. And that partial scholarship, I mean, a lot of times coaches are like, everyone's going to get something so you can all have a signing day. Well, that something is maybe $500.
Yeah, and it's also with the recruiters. They're some of them are just they overpromise. I can say that because I've worked with a few college players, and you have these other coaches come out and be like, oh, I can give you all this, and you're like, oh, I actually don't have all that. So for sure. And what would you say to like a college athlete, kind of like, oh, I mean a college athlete, like a high school athlete, kind of betting on the odds of him getting this kind of scholarship?
So it depends what kind of school they look at. There's a reason why so many good high school athletes go to D3 colleges, and that's because D3 colleges offer merit scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. And
Okay.
so oftentimes a student athlete will get a great merit offer from a D3 college and maybe a mediocre athletic offer,
Mm-hmm.
or no athletic offer from a D1 school. So make sure that you shop around. I think that student athletes who want to pursue their sport in college, there's some important questions to ask. Why are you pursuing it? Is it that you want to go on to compete at the professional or Olympic level? Is it that you engage with your community and your surroundings through your sport, and so it's important for you to continue to participate that way, because those will lead to some different college choices.
Yes. Or even
It's
major. I mean, we all know this. Like a lot of the athletes I knew in my school, when it comes to, they're all business majors, or and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's that it does limit you. You have very few people who choose engineering, very few people who choose computer science on the basis because there's just not time to get all these
yeah.
courses.
Yeah. One of the kids in our neighborhood, he was a track athlete and went to a D1 school and was on the team, but not his freshman year, he wasn't competing. And even in the off season, their trainings were 2 hours a day minimum.
Yeah.
And that was in the off season for someone who wasn't going to compete that year. So it is a massive, massive time commitment to play a sport at the D1 level. I mean, really to play it at any level, but
Mm-hmm.
um, but particularly at that level. And so it's really important for student athletes to understand, to think about what their goals are with their sports,
Mm-hmm.
as they're looking at colleges. And I think there are always good college admissions consultants who specialize in working with athletes, and I
Yeah.
think that can be so beneficial because there's that there's that fourth factor beyond academic, social, and financial fit of, is the coach looking for a player like in my position?
That's true.
um,
Yeah.
and do I like the coach and the program, and is that program a fit for me, where that can be a lot to sort through,
Mm-hmm.
to sort through on your own as a student.
Not for sure. And then what was you said the last form of?
So outside scholarships are the
Mm-hmm.
last type of scholarship, and these are scholarships that are offered by, like I said, anyone other than the college. So they're offered by Rotary. They're offered by parents' employers often. Lots of local organizations offer them. There are big websites like FastWeb and Scully that just have massive databases of
Mm-hmm.
scholarships that you can apply to. And you can certainly find scholarships that way. My recommendation is that students start by going to their high school's college and career center, because they will have a binder of scholarships. And yes, sadly, it is typically a binder where there's pieces of paper in it that have scholarship information. What's great about that is many of those scholarships are going to be local scholarships that only maybe students in your high school or some subset of students in your high school or students in your town are eligible for versus the ones that you'll find on Fasfa where everyone's eligible for them. The high school my kids went to, there was a scholarship for the tennis team. I mean, there's like 12 people on the tennis team. So if you applied for that, your odds of getting it are really, really good, compared to, say, the duct tape prom dress scholarship on FastWeb, where the pool of people who are willing to wear a dress made of duct tape to their prom might be larger than the pool of people on the tennis team at my kids' high school. So start local. You can ask teachers. My daughter found a great scholarship through her high school computer science teacher. So adults in your life often know about things like that. Employers, parents, employers may have scholarships for employees' children who are attending college. Club sports often have scholarships, or other things that you participate in may have scholarships that are specifically for those groups. And so those can be a great, those are a great starting point. The thing with outside scholarships is they tend to be smaller than institutional merit scholarships. Your typical institutional merit scholarship. The average tuition discount rate, which is the amount by which schools discount tuition on average, was over 50% last year. So you might say the average institutional scholarship might be, say, $20,000. The average outside scholarship is maybe between $1,000 and $5,000. There are certainly outliers there, larger and smaller, but these are more scholarships that'll close the gap between, say, a $20,000 a year budget and a $30,000 a year college than, say, a $20,000 a year budget and an $80,000 a year college.
And would you say are these scholarships assessed as income?
So for students who have financial needs, so the way that these outside scholarships work is they get dispersed directly to the college. Students who have need-based aid that includes any federal dollars, 50% of the value of the scholarship will count as income and will reduce their need-based financial aid. Okay. For a student who has only merit scholarships, it doesn't matter. For a student who has need-based scholarships that are institutional only, it's at the discretion of the college whether they reduce their financial aid award. Okay. And colleges, that when they do reduce those aid awards, they have a choice of how they do it. Your typical, a need-based financial aid package that includes federal dollars will have, typically an institutional grant, federal student loans, and work study in it. So the college can choose whether they reduce their own grant, whether they reduce the student loan, or whether they reduce work study, or some combination of the three. There's absolutely no consistency to this. So for example, my daughter she has need-based aid, merit-based aid, and an outside scholarship at her college. 1 year, she had her institutional grant reduced. 1 year, she lost work study. 1 year, the check got there too late, and so they didn't adjust anything. And then the 4th year, she didn't have any federal dollars in her package, so they didn't reduce her aid at all.
Okay. And then let's see. What would you say would be like the 5 biggest tips you would give parents for college planning?
Let's see. So first and foremost, I said this before, I'm going to say it again. College planning is equal parts planning and parenting. So make sure that you are having conversations with your student about what your goals for their education are, what resources you're willing to contribute, what your expectations of them are. Because if you don't do that, everything else you do doesn't matter, because they will find things that work for them that may or may not work for you. The second is, don't assume that just because you have a low expected family contribution or student aid index that you can apply to any college you want and that you will get scholarships. You need to find colleges that offer scholarships to students like you. Number three, I would say there is a scholarship for every student. It's just up to you to find those colleges. My son was not a rock star high school student by any stretch of the imagination. And yet he found a great merit scholarship that was almost like it was tailored to him. And so he is actually attending an out-of-state public college for less than it would cost him to go to college here in Oregon. He's graduating with a 4.0 GPA and has a job awaiting him in September. So let's see, is that three? How far down this list?
Yeah, two more.
Okay, two more. Savings creates choices will be number four. So save what you can, and set up your savings in a way that makes it easy for other people to help you out with it. And then the last thing I would say is there are good college pathways for every budget. So, the fact that you are among the many families who are not able to pay for college does not mean that your child can't go to college. You just need to, as I said in the first place, do the parenting so that your child understands the choices that are available to them.
Okay. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you so much for everything.
Oh, of course, that was fun.
Yeah, no, yeah, you pretty much laid out the book in 1 hour, so it was really, really good.